Hello everyone and welcome into the FedEx Preview Show. I'm Jonathan Merryman here with Marty Snider of NBC Sports. Before we get to the meat of the show, Chase Elliott and Marty's pick was the winner last week at Talladega. Here's what Chase had to say post-race.
You know, looking back, it was a well-executed race from the driving side, the team side. Chevrolet teams really stuck together throughout the entire day, and that was honestly the difference that put us in position there at the end, and luckily it worked out.
Now, Marty, I don't know how you did it, but you predicted an unpredictable finish.
Lucky guess. I was kidding with a woo.
a lot of momentum coming out of that race for the Hendrick Motorsports camp. And before we put our Dover hat on, how big of a relief is it over there that they finally get to victory lane, not only for them but for Chevy?
Well, you talk about for Hendrick Motorsports, but yeah, that's what I want to focus on is Chevrolet. And they finally, I mean, we're talking years of trying just to get the teams to work together, and it finally happened at Talladega, and just in time for Chevrolet too. They certainly needed to get a win, and Chase Elliott said it best on the radio after the race. We needed this one badly as a team, as an organization, and as a manufacturer. But what I saw in Chase is just the willingness to be aggressive, the willingness to run up front. You look at that move, as soon as Joey Logano opened up the bottom lane, he was able to take advantage of it and keep everybody behind him and kept his race car clean. Ran up front, but kept it clean all day long. And so for those guys, it's really big. Talking to Alan Gustafson, they have some momentum now. They go to a racetrack in Dover this weekend where Chase is clearly very good. Really should have won 2 of the last 3 races there, to be honest, but won there last fall. So I think this is certainly well-timed for Hendrick Motorsports.
So I want to talk to you about that because Hendrick Motorsports as a whole has a good history there between Jimmy Johnson and Chase's recent success. I'm not expecting a lot out of Jimmy this weekend, but Chase, like we talk about, has been good there. We noted their early struggles in the season at the downforce tracks, and that's going to come into play here at Dover. So is this a real litmus test for where Hendrick Motorsports is?
And that's a great term because normally we don't talk about Dover as being a litmus test, but I really feel like this weekend a lot of teams are going into Dover saying, hey, this is a really good test for us to kind of see where we are. Hendrick Motorsports is top of the list. I actually look at Stewart-Haas Racing as well as a team that knows, hey, we run Dover very well traditionally. Dover this weekend is going to be very interesting. More load on these cars than we've ever seen. We talked about all the angst going into Bristol a few weeks ago about how much downforce is going to be on those cars, how much load is going to be on those cars. And remember all those loose wheels we saw at Bristol a couple of weeks ago? You're going to see that and more this weekend at Dover. I think it's going to be a very interesting race, but a litmus test. That's a very good way to put it.
When things go wrong at Dover, they tend to go wrong in a big way. What makes this track so treacherous in terms of when somebody goes around, it's usually a multi-car incident?
Well, we always joke it's a self-cleaning racetrack because the straightaways are actually banked. You see these big wrecks, and you look at the end of the race last year, you couldn't predict who was going to be up front and be able to win the race because there were all these wrecks at the end of the race, contenders taken out left and right, and it's a racetrack where 2 cars get in an accident, it can turn into 20 very quickly because it clogs the entire racetrack. There's nowhere to go. But I look at pit road as well, very narrow pit road, the most narrow pit road that the Cup Series goes to all year long. And there's not a lot of room in these boxes either. So pit road can also be treacherous at Dover, and I think that's going to be a point of emphasis as well this weekend.
All right, Daniel Suarez is having a career season to date. Dover, very good racetrack for him. He's got an Xfinity win there. What do we expect from him?
Well, I think Daniel Suarez is certainly one of the dark horses. Very wise pick on your fantasy team this weekend. But I look at his Stewart-Haas teammates as guys that I'm looking at this weekend as maybe winners. Kevin Harvick knows this is one of his best racetracks. They always run well here. Since he and Rodney Childers have been teamed together, this has been one of their best racetracks. And Clint Boyer, really, I thought had one of the best cars last fall, is always a guy who runs top 5 at Dover. So I think they're going to be very strong this weekend. Eric Almirola was in a position to win this race last fall until that accident at the very end of the race. And yes, Daniel Suarez will be strong as well.
All right, who's a lock on your fantasy team? Who's someone you can't live without this weekend?
I'm going to go with Kyle Busch this weekend. I mean, how can you not put Kyle Busch on your fantasy team this weekend? He loves Dover. They had a problem on pit road, had the wheel fall off, and then in the fall race, they had the issue with the track bar. They couldn't figure out whether it was working or not, was it broken or not. Kyle still had a fast car throughout all that, so I'm going to go with Kyle Busch as a guy you have to have on your fantasy team this weekend.
I'm going to go outside the box here. I'm going to say Kurt Busch solely based off of his teammates' performance at this racetrack. I think the Ganassi notebook mixed with Kurt's veteran prowess at this racetrack, I think Kurt Busch is going to be hard to beat.
That's a good one, and Matt McCall's been excellent on strategy this year. And none of us picked Chase Elliott to win 2 in a row. I think Chase is going to be very strong this week.
Very realistic possibility where you can catch everything this weekend. It's the Gander RV 400, Sunday, 2 p.m. on FS1. Marty, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you get back here next week as we head to Kansas.